Hello and welcome to the Punters Show. Matt Taylor, Glenn Pilot, Mark Lambourne, and a special guest on the show, away from racing for a while, Mr. Grahame Begg.
And I welcome all the new guests to the show. Welcome to the show, Grahame.
Thanks, mate.
Grahame,
We're growing.
here we are.
And Graham's sitting next to Mark.
Grahame sitting next to
There's no problem.
We're old timers. In fact, Grahame, this is why you're part of the genesis of the Punters Show.
Yeah, exactly. You got him sacked from TKY. He's here now. You beauty.
I'm putting it up with everyone.
We all forgive and forget.
Exactly. But,
And if you didn't forgive and forget in racing, you wouldn't be in the game.
but isn't that part of it, Grahame? Like, I mean, I think, from your time in, the ability to do that and to, have that go and have that spite, it's almost the core of racing that we are tending to lose a bit.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that's pretty true. Got to have the passion.
Yeah, exactly right. And we're all very passionate, and it's now becoming duller and duller.
Just for those that don't know the story, can you just explain quickly what happened?
So was it 09? Was it the Liverpool City Cup 09?
I think it was.
Yeah.
So Grahame had his very well performed galloper all silent resuming.
Yep.
And he legged aboard the very capable and competent Peter Wells, but I sensed that perhaps it wasn't today for all silent, and said as much. And
On radio.
On radio.
Not on the Punters
Basically
Show.
accused of
You said Dirty Filthy Beg's giving this a run. Basically.
Yeah, that's reading between the lines.
But he forgot to say that Peter Wells did ride the horse in the Epsom. So
Yeah.
so he had a ride on the horse before. So.
Hang on, I think we're all right. We're off now.
Anyway, so I got the BZ treatment.
Yeah. Oh no, you didn't get warned off.
Did you say DEAD? Is that what you
No, I
said?
said that earlier with Shevington. Back in 2004,
That was your
so it
first warning.
2
No,
strikes.
I think he said. I think it might have been the words to the effect. It might have been having a look around or something.
Yeah, I think
Not a stay today.
I think the Shevington one was OFF off, wasn't it? Was that what you
that's
said?
right,
Yeah, you can't say that.
Wow.
What do you mean? I said it.
So what are they going to say about Fame Game on Saturday?
Well,
That's another story.
yeah, exactly.
That was an interesting barrier trial, wasn't it?
It was. So just
talk about
just
Well, there was
to
a couple of barrier trials on the road. Grand Marshal was another one too.
yeah.
Grand Marshal looks well. Grand Marshal would.
Anyway, just so you know, we're going to have a chat with Grahame, have a little bit of a chat about the Caulfield Cup, then get into the normal parts 1 and 2 in part 2. So, anyway, we'll talk about the Caulfield Cup in a sec. But Grahame, what has been happening? You took time off. When did you actually pull the sort of temporarily pull the pin?
December last year.
And-
December.
And what has been happening?
Is it only that long?
Yeah, wound
Seems
it
like
pick
a
up.
couple of years ago.
It does seem like a couple of years.
Feels like a couple of years, but
That's probably a good thing, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's starting to get sort of a bit itchy now, wanting to sort of get back in to do something possibly next year. We've just got a few options open, and we'll see what happens.
And why did you pull the pin?
Oh, look, we'd had a bit of a quiet last 2 years. I think what's happened to Sydney, the landscape of Sydney training ranks has changed dramatically with the bigger stables, and I think it's very, very hard now to get the access to the client base, and obviously the big buyers and things like that, and obviously your buying power is diminished, and quality of stock. So it just goes hand in hand, and if you have a bit of a quiet time, well, you're out the back door.
All of a sudden you're a bum trainer when you have a bit of a quiet time in this game. It's like, gee, Becky's a bum. That's how the marketplace perceives.
Yeah, so we just, we sort of were thinking along the lines middle of last year that, we need to sort of, rejig things around, have a bit of a break, and sort of look at doing something else, in the future. So, we decided to, end of last year was going to be the time that we were going to do it. So, it was disappointing for, we had quite a good, loyal bunch of staff and things like that, and clients which had stuck with us, for a good few years and everything like that. But anyway, we made the decision and we went with it.
Is it because does it start at the sales with the what we see as the overpricing of yearlings, whether they're real prices or not? Is that where the problem starts from? And is it now becoming too hard for the average person to access, and that's sort of your bread and butter?
No doubt. Look, you've only got to sit down and look at the form guide every week. Doesn't matter if it's at Kembla Grange, even further afield. The cost of the horses, the yearling prices are unbelievable. Well, there's Affiliate won the first 2-year-old race in Melbourne last week. think it was called Miss Rock, $500,000. And actually, I think it might have had, I read somewhere it had X-ray issues. So, $500,000, it's a big punt to take, everyone's got $500,000 to spend. So, from a trainer's point of view, you can't put your head on the chopping block.
Yeah.
You might do it once or twice, and you go out on a limb and, you really like a horse at the sales and you buy it and then you've got to go on, canvas for clients. And, the sale companies, they're pretty good, but at the end of the day, they're still got to be paid.
Yeah,
There's a day of payment.
Yeah.
And invariably, a lot of trainers, and I say this sincerely, a lot of trainers out there are actually their biggest clients.
Yeah.
They own bits and pieces of horses, and you can only do that so many times.
Yeah.
So, how careful were you when you got your hands on one of those horses?
Well, you'd have to be very, very careful.
Because I imagine that Begg certainly wouldn't care.
Oh, look, I think she does.
Care, but not.
I mean,
not
she
to the
would
extent
not
you-
the extent,
she'd
but
have
when
to
you
happily
got it.
work it hard and all that sort of stuff.
Well, look, they've got numbers, they've got volumes and numbers of horses, so they can go along and train those horses, to fit into their regime, their training regime, but when you're in a situation like myself, you've got a smaller base, you've got to be very careful and try to not make too many mistakes and try to, cut all those issues right down, so therefore sometimes it takes a bit longer to get the horses going because, you're very aware, you've got this expensive horse or a really well-bred horse, maybe for a high-profile client. You've just got to be very careful, not to make a mistake,
It's like a real pressure like that is not easy to deal with. Someone like Grahame might have 30 horses like that, all of a sudden there's no pressure because these all go through the machine
That's
and
right.
6 break down,
Yeah.
and 10 can go and move 14 on. It's not a big deal. But someone like Grahame, Grahame wasn't a small trainer, but he's in that next block down. That would be amazing pressure. Talking about pressure, that must have been awful letting your staff go.
Oh, it was. It was a very difficult situation to have to do that. But look, we were very fortunate. They were all able to find employment in Randwick and that, so which was really good. So they got well looked after and everything like that when we wound things up. So, but it was. It was a hard thing having to tell them. That was extremely difficult. And also my clients.
But I would imagine it'd be a hard thing, even though you're probably at that time exhausted. I don't think passion is a word that isn't that is removed from being used with you. It would have been very difficult for you to actually be saying, "Hang on, I'm stopping horse training at the moment."
Yeah.
At the same time as well too. So you're dealing with that.
Well, as I said, we agonised over it, my wife and myself, and it was a difficult thing. It was a lot of difficult phone calls to make to clients and things like that at the time. But once it was done, it was a big relief. Look, just getting off the merry-go-round of racing. It's wall to wall these days. The demands are great. With the racing and as we discussed before, yearling sales and things like that, and pressures of finances, funding everything and having a bit of a lean run and trying to find the money to pay for the horses and things like that. And it's not a cheap business at all. Training horses. People don't realise there's a lot of associated costs which are involved. Just producing the horse on race day, and it puts a big strain on things. So I thought, well, look, it's best to take a deep breath and just analyse where we were going.
How good would it be to be able to train the horses and have someone else look after all those other bits and pieces?
Well, that'd be fantastic. But
is that possible? Is that feasible?
Bigger lady, your mate John O'Shea.
exactly, he's in the ideal position. Look, and that's where you got to take your head off to the likes of Chris Waller, because he runs a huge operation. He's got a huge number of horses in Sydney, also now in Melbourne. He's getting a team together there, but obviously they run a very good operation. Controlling everything how they do with multiple runners and races, controlling the clients, the jockeys, and producing them on race day to do their best.
Exactly. You mentioned the hidden costs, Grahame, and we're sort of getting into the structure of why things are hard, and probably it's becoming elitist. We saw the big prize money increases with Peter Valentis and his Crusade and everything like that. Would it be better to be being put into help assist the trainers with those costs to be able to make trainers like yourself more feasible, rather than putting it into the top end of prize money just for the the elite to just keep getting.
Look, I think no doubt the money should be going in at an even spread right across the board. You know, country, provincial and
Yep.
midweek races, because they are the backbone of the industry. You know, obviously, it's great having huge prize money on the big races, but, you know, at the end of the day, you're going to get the same field.
Yeah, exactly.
Like your golden
Yeah.
slipper, you're going to get the same 16 line up in the golden
Yeah.
slipper or
You're
a
going to get the 16
Doncaster.
best.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're totally right. Well, look at the...
Aren't they
look-
arguing that it's actually promoting the product, like in a wider sense?
You know what? I think keeping owners in the business.
Yes.
That is
Yeah.
the biggest issue.
Well, how hard is it to find owners, and you know, will we have an owners prices?
Well, look, you know, the
Are
little guys, you know, they go to a yearling sale and they're looking at these record prices, you know, like even the lesser sales. You know, there's money coming in from overseas and, you know, look, there's no question. I think the price of yearlings are too dear.
Yep.
And it all stems back from the service fees for stallions.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's got an expectation. You know, they might go to a $50,000 or $60,000 stallion, or $80,000 or $100,000 stallion. Well, they all think their progeny are going to bring that in the sale ring. You know what? End of the day, you know, they're just another horse.
Exactly. But is that due to the inflated market that probably isn't even a real market at the sales?
Well, if you've been around long enough,
Yes.
sniff things out,
Yes.
you know what's right and what's not right.
Yeah, exactly. But that does then put a price on it, which goes back to the stallion fees, which causes the problem.
Oh, no doubt,
Yeah.
no doubt. But you know, that's always been my biggest bugbear.
Yeah.
I think the stallion fees are too high in this country, and you know, a lot of the money goes offshore.
So, are there measures?
Yeah, that's a fair point too, isn't it? Yeah.
Is there stuff we can do about that?
Well, they haven't done anything about it yet.
I know, but like for example, it sounds a lot like people complaining about Sydney house prices.
Yeah, sure.
You know,
Yeah, but the
and-
Sydney house prices are sort of real, Mark. They're not.
You know, I
Well, they
understand
they are
not-
inflated
not
by
potentially manipulated in the
yeah,
same way.
They are inflated by the Indians and
Just
Chinese.
on that subject, I watched the news last night. Just diverting from that. They said there's going to be the housing prices are about to drop. It was on the news last night, and they said this could match the crisis of 2012.
Yeah.
Dude, was I in a coma for a couple of months?
Glad,
was the crisis in
glad it's been
2012?
50 years of crisis for you. So.
But did I miss a downturn? Was there a downturn in 2000? I don't recall remembering it.
Might have been a correction.
What, for a month it went down 0.25% or something?
Didn't your financial advisor contact you and say you've got to be careful with your trading this week?
He didn't. He said, when you get out of living in that park,
That's the thing. I think prize money is probably record high, but an average owner's loss is probably highest as well. But no one will tell you that.
No, well, like, really, to have a horse in training per year for an owner, it would be somewhere, it would range somewhere between, you know, it depends on the stable, somewhere between 25 to 35,000.
Okay, so compare that. Given that you've been in the game so long, like you're our sort of our litmus test because you're born into it. What was happening back when you were just sort of like a young adult, or you know, when your dad was training? How much were owners facing up to then?
Oh, look, I think training fees back in those days, you know, they were on something like probably $40 or $50 a day. You know, now they range between, you know, 110 to 150 a day.
But, I
Certain
mean, given,
stables, you know?
given the rate, given the rate of change in the CPI, that's probably not unreasonable.
But I mean, that what Graham's saying though. But I think times have become a bit tougher though too, with a lot of other interests. You're saying that it's 50% of the average wage to get a horse trained. That's pretty much what
I
we're
would
looking
think
at.
that's pretty right.
Yeah, it's a lot of money, isn't it? And then on top of it, when you got to buy a house to have the horse. There's that, and then you got to have half the yearly wage to train it.
You've got to have the holiday house for the
But then
horse
you've got to
as
have
well.
everything go
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, that's
Well,
right.
that's without having the problems, you
Yeah.
know, the associated problems,
Yeah,
you know,
that's
the
right.
growing pains, and,
Yeah.
you know, or, you know, the horse might be cactus or might
Well,
not have
that's
any
right.
ability.
I've had four different ownerships in the horse, and only one has just managed to break square. That was, she had a provincial win, and then she had one win at Canterbury, and the rest two didn't make it to the track.
That's right.
One just kept running around. That's why they need to keep rewarding the people that are just churning out. You shouldn't just be rewarded for winning a Group 2 or a Group 3, especially a mare's listed race.
Yeah, but I mean, that's sounding very socialist.
Social.
You know, socialist. I mean, you know, we're in a capitalist society that rewards the winners.
Yeah, but it's too
Well,
much reward for the winner.
It'll lead to like England, where
Yeah.
they're owned by rich I think I heard there was like 25 people own 90% of the fields over in England. It's like, that's not good.
I think it's going
how bad is that
way.
going to
Yeah,
be for Punters?
we're on the slide to that for sure, aren't we?
Oh, I think it's very real. That could be a possibility. Because a lot of people are just getting priced out of the game.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like, you look at the success that Godolphin is now happening, now that they've been able to say they're bringing over horses. There's going to be a lot of horses waiting to come over from there, aren't there? When that wasn't happening. They're only just bringing them up and pissing them off.
Well, that's right. And there's, other sort of, big owners coming from Qatar and those places. Those guys, Sheikh Al Thani, I think it is. He's racing with Robert Snurden in Melbourne. He seems to be his trainer down there. That, they're big investors, and I think there'll be more.
They're only going to have to. One of those is only going to have to win one big race, and the floodgates will well and truly.
Well, look at the guy that owns Mongolian cars.
Yeah.
He's supposedly bought 800 horses in New Zealand in the last 3 years.
Wow.
So obviously they're going back there, but if they open up their shoulders, these guys, and get a bit of a like for it, who knows?
So from a trainer's
might
point
buy
of view,
900
it's
horses,
scrabbling to get hold of one of those owners.
Just got to latch onto one.
Yeah,
Put a lasso on him.
That's sort of a bit of a frustration, isn't it? You've got to go around on your hands and knees and beg to try to find a wealthy Chinaman. It's not what Australian racing's all about, is it?
No, it's not. And the thing is, there too, like, they're not actually. A lot of them don't race here.
Yeah.
We buy a few for Hong Kong and things like that. And at the yearling sales, they get prepped here to go and race up there. So, therefore, it's okay in a way because it keeps things ticking over down here for the studs and maybe the trainers and the guys that are doing all the footwork for them. But at the end of the day, all those horses are leaving the system here. So, and that's what's been happening in New Zealand for years and years because their prize money's so bad. People got to trade horses and away they go.
Become a trading business.
Able to survive.
Yeah. Moving away from the issues, Glenn. One thing, you've always said that. Hello, you there?
Yeah, no, I'm enjoying listening to Graham.
It's good, isn't it?
I was always deep down, as you all know, always had I felt like I'd finish up a trainer, which of course I'm not going to.
Oh, you've given it up. You told me.
No, I will be a trainer, but I will actually do it.
Oh well, Graham, from
Begg and Pollitt partnership.
I'll be able to get the clients away.
Having been in track work quite a bit and seen Graham's normally normally there about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. Last to leave at about 9:30, 10. That's just easy hours for you. Then just go back at just like the cows you were talking about before. The horses feed themselves and all that.
I could turn up at 9:30 and just hose the last one down.
Do the Anthony Cummings.
Yeah, exactly right. Turn up with Anthony.
What were you going to say anyway?
You've always mentioned, and one of the first things when we started looking to horses together, how well Graham's horses are presented.
Oh, they're presented fantastic. Like I'm not. I said that the whole time, but like not being able to compete, not being able to compete, but struggling because it's the marketplace. But you're struggling against all the other effects too. Like Grahame obviously didn't ever use any suit or any gear. That'd be a fair thing to say, wouldn't it?
Well, we've got a clean record.
Yes,
There you
exactly.
go. You're up against. It's like Matthew Smith's horses present pretty well, but they just
Going right now.
they're going right now. Maybe he's gone to the dark side.
or the dark side.
What
or the
about
dark
ore?
side. Or the dark side's had some light shed on it.
Yeah, or the dark side's had some light shade.
How bad is the? I mean, we've seen a lot of these charges come out, Graham. How bad is it? Do you think is it? I mean, there's a perception out there that gear in, gear out, all that sort of stuff. What's your take on it?
That's my take on it. Well, makes you wonder how long things have been going along.
Yeah.
Look, obviously, you hear people milkshaking horses and things like that. Then they brought in the testing for that. Now they've brought in, you're not allowed to tube a horse, one clear day before, so that eliminates all that. But what we've seen in the last few months, it just seems like they've found the next thing.
Yeah.
So look, it's a very difficult job for the stewards, the police, all that. I think, well, I hope that they just get the backup that they deserve, to make it as clean as it can be, And let's face it, as far as industry goes, we've got to have an industry that's, watertight as far as anything untoward happening,
So back in the steroid days, like, because you were around for that, what was the perception and what was the feeling like?
Well, look, a lot of trainers use steroids. There's no doubt about that. You know, it just seemed to make horses stay up a lot longer. You know, they're able to probably endure a lot more. But you know, to suggest that they would be, you know, it would put lengths on them or anything like that, I think that's pretty fanciful.
So it's more about longevity.
Longevity.
Getting them to eat a bit too, Grahame, is that?
Yeah,
Was
used to make them eat a bit, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But, you know, but look, they haven't been around for some time now, so, you know, they're virtually completely outlawed now, so, you know, there's no help from getting steroids whatsoever, you know.
Should they're very stringent on a lot of minor, very, very minor race day treatment type things. We saw the Jelligatus family get, you know, they had some residue of pace left over on from whatever. Is it too stringent, some of the restrictions you have on being able to do something with the horse leading into a day?
I think probably any race day treatment, right, whatsoever, you know, they should be sort of, you know, they shouldn't be allowed to, you know, really treat them on race day, so everyone's on a level playing field. But look, just the little therapeutic things about like icing a horse and all that. You know what? All the trainer's trying to do is produce it there in its best possible condition on the day.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, some horses always get a bit of puffiness in a joint or something
So you're
like
not allowed
that.
to ice on the race day?
No, you're not supposed to do anything to them.
What about brushing? Are you allowed to brush
Yeah,
it?
you're allowed to brush them.
What's the
Well, that's race day treatment.
Exactly.
Where's the line?
Yeah, I know.
You're allowed to buckle up the saddle?
It has gone a bit silly.
Yeah.
Really, you know, like this, just little things, you know, but you're not supposed to do, like even just, you know, putting hoof hardener or something on their feet, you know. Like, I think Leon Coulson's got trouble in Melbourne. He put a preparation on horses' feet, you know, which just hardens their feet up, the sole of their foot, you know. Some horses get a little bit sort of, you know, soft-footed sort of thing.
But basically things that are going to help with that horse's consistency
Just
and
getting
then
it
help punters.
It's just going to get it there in the best possible condition on the day. It's not actually going to put legs on it, but it's actually just going to get the horse there, and it'll be just doing its best, you know?
Yeah. No,
Well, you want it to run up to every length it's got.
Yeah.
Oh, totally.
Is that because the decision makers aren't in the game?
Well, they're not really attuned. They're not horse people, really. You know what's, you know, what you should be allowed to do and what you're not shouldn't be allowed to do. You know,
Well,
I agree. You shouldn't be allowed. You know, no tubing or probably no injections. You know, within 24 hours or whatever. You know, that stands to reason. But you know, surely you should be allowed to take a blood from a horse on a Friday if it's left feed, you know, Thursday night, something like that. Yeah. And you know, you just want to make sure it's 100%. It's not sort of incubating any sort of, you know, viral or virus or something like that, and its white cell count's fine. So, you know, but now you've got to get permission from the stewards to be able to do that, you know. So
another layer of administration for essentially a small business.
You know,
which is you
know, look, you're just trying to do the right thing by the horse and the client, your client and the punters.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, who are probably going to invest in that horse. You want to make sure it's 100% to go to the races and perform at its best.
When you say just blood, just on a side issue, we hear your blood's taken. What's the process of getting them done, tested, and back to you with the results? How does that actually work? Because I know if we go for a blood test, you know, you wait a day or two for it.
No, we get our results back that afternoon.
Do you really?
Yeah, no, they do them, you know, after their track work in the morning. Some get done prior to track work, you know, but yeah, no, we'll get a result back by lunchtime, so it's pretty good, you know, so you know where you're at.
And what sort of cost is involved here?
Well, blood's
$100?
Oh yeah, it'd be anywhere between $100 $200.
And that gets passed on to the owner?
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah.
Oh, we're working a second job now.
No, I was just interested because all those little things, I didn't know how they work.
Should be on a comm from the vets.
Yeah.
You'll have to organise all this when you're training.
Yeah, when I'm training, yeah, I probably won't be training now. Oh, that seems a lot of work. I was once a florist for quite a while.
So you remember 20 years ago when we were desperate to get rid of the AJC and the Tempe report came down and we got the top class TRB, and which morphed into Racing New South Wales. Has it been the panacea that we were looking for?
No.
Definitely not. No, I think it's been another reason why things have changed dramatically in the racing industry. You know, merging of clubs and things like that. You know, the competitiveness of the clubs. You know, and I think that used to be very healthy. You know, between AJC and STC and things like that. Now you've seen it's happen up in Queensland, virtually the same thing. No, it hasn't. because, you know, here in Sydney, it's been very strange the way it was implemented, you know, with the merging of the clubs. Here at the AJC, they still had the mob doing their track renovations. Right? Turn Point.
Yeah.
They had them doing their yet Rose Hill and Canterbury still employed all the STC track hands.
Yeah.
So, you know, so really, in one sense, it wasn't a real merger, you know, in one sense, the way it was run, you know. So there was some suggestion that, you know, the STC were in a little bit of financial trouble when they were merged, and they weren't probably getting run as well as they probably could have. But still in all, I still think that possibly, you know, it would have been a better thing if it didn't take place, the merger.
Yeah.
You know, plus two, I think probably Racing New South Wales probably got too much control and overriding of the clubs, you know, particularly now because it's one club, you know.
Well, it sounds from what you were saying, the level of the administration you have to do as a trainer now in 2015 is more than probably what you did when we're a modern society with computers and everything else like that. And I would have thought if you're bringing in a governing body like Racing New South Wales or whatever it was called in its first place, and also the merging of the clubs, that should be reducing your administration work and making your life easier. But it sounds like now life's harder as a trainer than it was 20 years ago when modern society it should be easier.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, but you know, it's not only here. Victoria's pretty much the same. You know, they, you know, things that I see that they do down there, which I think is, you know, probably a little bit ridiculous. You know, the way things get run down there, some decisions. You know, so yeah, leaves a lot of answers, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. What would you do if you're in charge?
What would I do if I was in charge? I'd probably try to help as many owners stay in the game as possible.
So how do we find them in the first place? Because I mean, that's a, you know, we're always talking about punters, but obviously owners are another
Integral.
Yeah. But how are they introduced? Like, who
Punters can be owners, though.
Yes, that's what
You've got to give them
syndication.
The first thing you've got to give them is a sniff of a chance of getting quick. I think once you take away like you got to. All of us in Australia want to have a good throw at the stumps in whatever industry. So if you take away the opportunity to think, look, this is, and every person involved says, look, as an owner, you're really going to do your balls. It's going to be really tough, and yes, there might be the odd takeover target or lottery win, but you've got to give them a good sniff of returning their investment. I think.
No doubt. I think that's the key thing. You know, getting a return on their investment.
Yeah.
And let's face it.
A fair return. Sure, you'll have the odd cripple you own and you'll do your money, but then you know, like, but I think with a lot of horses, these big prices. But those people that go to sales and they sit there, I go to sales every year and just, I don't know why I go there for the coffee. But I go to sales every fucking year. And I sit there in the stands and I see some people, they go, this is the one, and you know, they've got a budget of 70, first bid 100, and they go, what happened to us? You know,
you don't get a look in.
No. You don't get looking. Would you go looking for houses every week if you're a home buyer, if you never once got your hand up? No, you would stop looking.
No, you'd do something else.
There was a very bad downturn in 2012. Very bad. Anyway, but I think that's the most important thing, giving them a chance. If any person in Australia, if you give them a chance, they'll have a league.
Yeah. And that's going to help with field size.
Yeah,
it is. You want lots of.
And it also.
I'd rather lots of horses with different colours than seeing a
we
Star Godolphin.
We
horse.
don't want Waller with 4 runners, Snowden with 3, O'Shea with 2, and the field of 10's made up by one other runner that used to be gay, but now she's gone to God. Where is gay? I don't know.
Do you have any runners, said that?
One.
Where is she?
One, the offer.
Oh, wow.
Yes, it's amazing, isn't it?
Gone to God.
I heard Roddy Duffers on the radio say, she'd probably be preparing 2-year-olds at this time. I thought, hang on, it's Melbourne Cup Carnival time. She'd normally be having 57 runners in Melbourne, wouldn't she?
Well, anyway, we don't need like I said, a 10-horse race with and 3 stables dominating the race, and we
That's the way it's gone.
30% of the race owned by the Sheik.
Yeah.
The man in blue. He wouldn't even set foot in Australia. He's a good boy.
No, he did. Remember, you saw him once. You said hello to him in Melbourne. That was in
two.
2012. I think in the
He had 57 hanging on us. I thought they were going to get stabbed.
So anyway,
surely, if once upon a time, let's say 5% of the population owned horses. Now let's say it's 1% or 0.5%.
Less.
I mean, how do you go and find an owner? Like, how does a person get introduced to the idea of owning a horse? You're a salesman, you're a trainer, so...
What if you own a good female horse and then breeding with it?
I know, but I
And
mean,
having
like
a gist
before
in
that,
it,
how do you even get introduced to the idea of owning a horse?
A lot of people were, a lot of owners, had the interest of horses early on. They were, when they're younger punters and they got the bug for it. But now you don't see that. You don't see that.
Well, I think back to the days that I was first going there, Graham, and after the last we'd have a beer or whatever. Now after the last, it's been so sanitised. You kicked off course. There's no
The bar's
social.
closed.
No, you can join in the rave.
Yeah, that's right. But they were the days there. There was always in the owners and trainers bar at Randwick, and that would have been getting people introduced to her.
Can
Yeah,
you imagine?
He led the charge.
yeah, still do.
Last to leave.
You
Yeah.
could be last to leave then. But
I used to try and buy you guys a beer after the last, but you can only buy 2 at a time.
yeah, that's right.
So it'd take me about 3 goes.
Yeah, and by the third go, the bar's closed.
That's
so
right.
that social aspect being removed from it a bit, Graham.
I
is-
think what they introduced last Saturday is a step in the right direction with the country race.
Country race.
And I think, that's what we're just discussing, about people thinking they've got some chance. Coming to Sydney, there's a race on next week and I think they're going to 40 of those sort of races, and just knowing that there's going to be a race there, every second week, or, for their particular horse, or, over a certain distance or whatever. So I think that's a positive move.
Yeah, I've got to say I was against it, but then I heard on the radio on the way in, Nolene was the lady's name, who was I think in the ownership of one of the horse, and how thrilled she was and all that sort of stuff. And I thought,
Yeah, you realise-
I was looking from a purely Sydney centric and whatever, but that's provided them with the opportunity to win a race at Randwick.
No doubt, so I reckon that's a huge step in the right direction.
Is it hard work getting to travel horses like that? Like, I mean, we've got the tyranny of distance, tyranny of the mountains in New South Wales, where it's sort of hard work getting horses to travel around. And like Victoria.
Oh, look, the country horses, Mark, they travel all the time. If you're of course, based at, say, Scone, for instance, you might go to Morita race, or, Armidale, up the Tablelands.
Do what you need to do.
They would do it, yeah, exactly. And so they get used to it. And a lot of the horses, they might come down and stay overnight anyway. They float them down on a Friday, stay at the stable on the Friday night, and they'd go out and have a walk or a trot or something on the Saturday morning. So, I think it's a very positive move.
So we don't see country horses race like they used to race in town. Well, why is that?
Well, I think the rating system, and that's why they've had to address that by putting this system of races on every week, so these horses get their opportunity. And I think, it's a step in the right direction New South Wales have taken. For a change, has started to listen to the participants, because what was happening, the horses were, they'd win in their area, but they were getting rated, like they're winning a city race or whatever,
exactly.
And they, I know they get allowance when they come to the city, but number one, they're not racing against the city competition where they're trained at, or where they're racing in their own particular area. So, it's hard for those sort of horses to compete, whereas the old days, you say, Mark, you'd see horses come down with a record of 5 or 6 on the trot.
Yeah. And it
you
adds something.
don't see that
It
anymore.
adds something. It adds another layer to it.
They'd come down, they'd win a few open handicaps in the bush, and next thing they'd be coming to the city and they'd be on the limit in the welter or something like that, or or 2 metropolitan win race or something like that, and they'd come down here and they'd be very hard to beat. You don't see that anymore.
No.
And like, you don't see the horses, even in the city, putting a string of wins together like you used to. In the old days, you'd see horses over picket fence, alongside their name. You don't see
very
that.
rare.
Very rare.
I remember some of the most exciting races were in the mid-80s. They were at Gosford. They were those $10,000 measurements. My God, we were just wetting ourselves all day waiting for these races, because you get these horses from the mid-world coast that come down with these unbelievable records. And it was all in. It was
Game on.
It was game on.
That's right. And those horses, and they were more than capable of winning a midweek in town.
Yeah.
Well, actually, that was their stepping stone to
Yeah.
win a midweek in town.
Yeah. And then the
They'd go-
midweek in Town Welter was your stepping stone to Saturday.
Yeah, or, I'd say bring back the welters myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
They don't have the
Yeah.
midweek welters.
But we actually do They're just called
Their
a different-
rating, I know.
They're
But
called
it's,
something
it's
else.
different. But I mean, that was, and it actually did put a centrepiece on the Wednesday as well too.
Yeah,
So there was,
I know,
so you
I
know,
know.
you'd, even if you sort of weren't interested or you had something else to do, it'd draw you into actually at least watch or listen to in those days the welter because you wanted to.
Yeah, it was the feature race.
Yeah, there was something there to draw
And
you.
those horses had, strung together, gone through their grades. They'd come in on the welter on the limit.
Yeah.
Now they go into those races.
61 kilos.
59, 60
Yeah.
kgs,
Yeah.
whereas before.
Yeah.
And so what happens is they don't bring it.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly.
Where do they go then?
Oh, mate.
They just
Where
stay
do
around
those
and
go?
stay around at home. You know,
Right,
they're not
they
in-
don't
there's,
have
there's
the
no
private
invitation
status.
to them. They should be invited
They
then.
don't have to try the stuff.
So what about the idea of having tiered prize money? Because at the moment you've got a maiden the same prize money as if you're in
I
open
think
class.
that's an issue too.
Yeah.
I actually follow the Singapore racing quite a bit, and they have a tiered system.
Yeah.
Their prize money structure.
Yep.
They'll have a race of 35,000. They might have a $50,000 race or a $75,000 race, or it might go up.
Yeah.
But what they do one week, a maiden might be worth 35 one week, but there'll be a $75,000
Yeah.
maiden the week after.
Yeah.
So,
So
it
you've got
balances
heaps
out.
of
Yeah.
It balances out. So,
It makes a
yeah.
bit more sense. I mean, at the end of the day, for getting a five-year-old horse to win a race in town, there's a bit more work gone into that than a 2-year-old having its first start. Which
Well,
half of those 2-year-olds you're never going to see again because they've got no ability, and they're racing for the same prize money.
Well, that's right. They're running for the same prize money as an open class horse.
Yeah.
So particularly early on in the season.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think there's certainly an issue there.
Beautiful. Anyway, well, that's probably
That's a good part one, Dale.
that's a very good part one. One of
All
our,
right,
our
that's
best
in-
part one of the year.
That's the end of part one, guys.
All right, thank you.